Hello and welcome. I'm Shadow of Shadow Gaming, bringing you Programming with Shadow episode number 14, I think. In today's lesson, we're going to continue looking at object-oriented programming, and we're going to program a shopping cart example. So the idea is we're going to be able to add some items to the shopping cart and get some totals, and we're going to do it through objects and a little bit of inheritance. So let's go ahead and hop in. To begin with, I'm going to create a new file, call it atom.cs. Also going to create a second new file, and I'm going to call it category.cs. We'll start with category. So we're going to see something new here. I don't think I've mentioned this, but we're going to do public enum category. The idea with an enum, it's not an object. It's basically it's a name for a number. So each value in here is going to be numbered. So C# can treat it as a number, but it has a name so that the programmer can use it more effectively. We're going to do grocery, education, general, and automotive. So what we're going to use these for is for tax rate. So we're going to say wherever we're at, we're going to say there's no tax rate for grocery. There's a reduced tax rate for education. There's a regular tax rate for general items, and there's a higher tax rate for automotive. So maybe we're trying to promote education or not promote getting automotive. I don't know. But that's what we're going to use for example here. Let's go over the item. Let's do public class item. All right. So do a property prop string name. Make it read only. Public decimal price get set. Now I'm not going to use it, but we'd probably want some way to rename or reprice an item. I'm not going to do that though, but for this example, but we could category equals or category get. It'll be get only. Let's do constructor. Do string name, decimal initial price, category. So we're using that enum here. We're going to do something different with it, something we haven't seen yet. We're going to add a default value. We're going to say most stuff's going to be general, so we're going to do general, and that way when we create these, we don't, or if we're going to use general, we don't have to provide this option. But it has a default value, so it won't be null or default value or anything. It'll have a starting point, but we don't have to provide it in some cases. You can sometimes use that. This probably isn't going to be the most wonderful example, but I've seen occasional uses of that where it really cleans up what you're doing. All right. Now we need to get the tax. So we're going to use the category here instead of having each item know about its tax. The base item here is the one that's going to actually know about taxes, and it'll be able to do the calculation. Let's do public decimal. I'm using decimal because it's usually a little better for money. It has less, not as lossy, so you don't get you do a 0.3 or if you do 1/3, it's a 0.333 repeating. You don't run into that rounding. Let's do get tax. So here's another new thing. So far we've pretty much used if statements else if else. We've used switch case. There's also another one called switch expressions. And it looks something like this. So here, since we have a category and it has a limited number of items, there's only 4 items here. There's going to be a fifth for something that doesn't fit in. But since we have that, we can do something like this. And if I hit Control dot here, I can add missing cases. There we go. And we're going to add one more case just for the something that doesn't match. So all we're going to do here is we're going to set the tax rate based on whatever value it is here. So let's do 0.0. There's no tax on groceries. 0.05. So there's a 5% tax on education materials. 0.1M. 1% tax on all items. 0.15 for automobiles. So a little higher on automobile. And for this case, we technically don't need to do general because it'll fall into the default category, so we could do that. However, so we could do that. I'm going to leave it here because maybe general needs it. Maybe there's a different default tax rate in the future or something. You could think about that however you want, but these are the same. You could eliminate this one. So let's return. So price times tax rate. So that's just going to get us some value. Like say if we put a dollar in it or something that costs $1, it's general. We should get 10.0 back. There's just a get tax method though, and we'll be able to use it from anything that inherits this. Let's do decimal get total price. So we're using expression body members like before. So total price is just the price plus the tax rate, or plus the tax. So we'll see we can do some interesting things with that. Now we're going to override a method. Notice this is the base class, but we can still override a method. So here we're going to do override string to string. Go. String. We're going to override it, and what we're going to return is something like this. Let's do name. Put price here in parentheses. Make it a currency, so 2 decimal places. Put a category. Tax. Tax. But here we'll just list out how much tax it is on the thing, and we'll do a currency of 2 again. I'm assuming US dollars because that's what mine's going to come through. When I do currency here, it's going to just use my whatever my local is, so it should be US dollars. And total. Get total price. So there we go. There's just a nice little item class to make use of. So a lot of times I've been making these in new files. I'm just going to make inherit what I'm going to inherit from here for now. May adjust later, we'll see. But now I'm just going to do it here. So let's do public class bread. So we'll have a grocery item. We'd have more of these, but I'm just going to do a couple just for the sake of example. Bread, base, it's called bread, price, let's say $2.99. Category, grocery. Public class, let's do something. Do book, item, public, book, base, book, say it's $15 for education. Alright, let's do another. Good wipers. It's an item. We'll say, I don't know, not 99. Category automotive. Get something general. Let's do this shirt. Let's say 7. This one's general. So that using general like the rest of them. However, because of our default, our base, notice here in parentheses it's showing just print or not parentheses, square braces. What that's showing is it's an optional value, and if it's optional, it's telling you that this will be the default value. General, so we should be good here. There we go. So now we've got us a couple items in here. Make us a driver. So I'm imagining the sharpening cart here only can hold, let's say 10 items just to make it easy. So there, so we have a cart. Cart count equals. So I'm going to use cart count to say how many items are in the cart. So that way we could just keep track. Let's do full running equals true. I'm going to use that to tell me when I'm done. Yeah, I'm going to use that. Let's do while running. Let's do a menu. Let's do print new. Return and now void menu. Let's do console right line. I'm going to put this on a new line because I think I'm going to need that here. That. Their items. 1. Add bread. Yeah, I think this is what I want to do. So copy 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's adjust all these. So yeah, let's do this. The Control D there just gets the next one of what you have copied. I'm just going to delete all of them just so I can have a fresh place here. Let's say add book, add t-shirt, windshield wipers, toothpaste. Notice we don't have an item toothpaste, but I'm going to add one more that we don't have, and we'll see what we can do there. Start, check out, and make X as 0 instead of an 8. Have it as a separate option. Let's do that. Now we'll do console.write. Choose an option. And we'll do string input equal console.readline. null coalescing operator. If it's null, we'll throw a new exception. We're not gonna worry about this. We're just third user input is null, and we'll not worry about that any further. Switch input. Let's add some cases. So if we get a 1, break. Let's copy this a couple of times. That 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I guess we need a default. Maybe default. So it's easy. So let's do console.writeLine invalid selection. There we go. And break before I forget to break. There. Let's fix the numbers. So here's a trick. I'm going to press insert on my keyboard. Find it. Insert. So now my cursor changed from a line to a bar. And that puts us in overwrite mode, as you can see down here. And it just overwrites whatever, so that makes it easier to just do this. So now I don't have to delete. I just press insert again to get back out of overwrite mode. Let's do 0, so running equals false, so that'll get us out of the loop. So we're going to do this as a set of local methods, so let's do add item, bread, add item, book, these are all internal, so this is how I'm choosing to handle it. There's definitely a better way to handle it. This is what I'm going to do for this example, though. I use one plural intended. So yeah, we'll keep that consistent. So there we go. So there's them. Let's also add a view cart option. So something like view cart if it'll let me, and then a checkout. All right, let's make those real. Let's start with add item. So void add item. Notice we're not using static here. Rather than returning, we're going to use the value. We're going to use the shopping cart. We're going to say it's here at the top level, and we're going to use it inside the local functions here. So first thing we want to do is if count greater than or equal to the cart dot. They're not a. I guess it's just length. So if it's greater than that, we'll do console dot write line cart is full. Okay. So now we're going to use another switch expression. We're going to do it on the name. We're going to do the name to lower just to make it easier to compare. So here we have bread, new bread. These are comma separated. Book, book. T-shirt, new shirt, windshield windshield wipers. New windshield. Something about how this one does IntelliSense, it annoys me. Toothpaste. So we don't have a toothpaste item already created, so we're going to have to create that in place, but we can do that. We included the flexibility to do that. So here we have a toothpaste. Let's say it's 357. Once again, I've been using the M a couple places here and I haven't mentioned it. All that's doing is saying that this is a decimal. M's the representation they chose for decimal. D couldn't be used because it's used for double. I don't know what else you'd use for decimal, but M's what it is, and I've heard people say you can money. That's what we're using it for here. We're going to say if we don't get one of those values, we have a throw new exception. Item name is unknown. The reason that's okay to do here is that this is internal. Like the user's not going to be entering bread or whatever here. The user's going to be entering a number here, and if it doesn't match, they get invalid selection, forced to try again. So we don't have to worry about any of that. So that's an internal error. If you see that error, the programmer made a mistake instead of the user. Good time for an error, actually. One other thing here, I'm not doing any kind of conversion here to turn these to numbers. I'm saying if I get the string 1, we're good. And that's perfectly fine. We can compare on that. Be fine. All right, back here in add item. All right, so now we've got the item we want. Now we just need to add it to the cart. Cart at cart count plus. So what this does is after we use it, we add 1 to it. So that's exactly what we want to do here. Equals item. We could also do it like this and do cart count plus here. This will work the same. I'm going to do it inside here just so we see we can, but either one's is fine. Do a console.writeLine. Let's tell the user what we did. Item name added to cart. Alright, so there's this one method. Let's do the next to view cart. The same thing, we're going to use, not using static in this case. I was going to say your cart. Let's do cart. Now let's go back to your cart. That if cart count equals 0, console.writeLine cart is empty. And then we can just return because we're done. Else for int I equals 0, I less than cart count I plus plus. If not, we're going to loop through the list and we're going to do console.writeLine I'm going to say I plus 1. So count plus 1, so we start at 0, so make it better for the user. We're going to start it at 1. So 1 dot start. That's all we need to do. That's fine because we have a toString method. So when an item has a toString method that's overridden, anytime you go to use that item in a string, it'll automatically use that toString method and go ahead and print it how you want it to be. So that's all I'm doing here. I think that's all I need for the view cart method. Let's do a checkout. So check out. Let's do decimal. Total equals 0, and tax total also equals 0. Now let's do console.write line. Check out. Now we want to do for int I equals 0, cart count, apples plus. So our item equals I. So get the item. I don't want to use var, I want to use item. Get the item. We'll do console.write line item. See, we'll keep a track of the tax total. How much tax each item does, and then we'll keep track of the total. Get total price. Now let's print that. So let's do console.write line /n total tax total. We'll do C2. See with 2 decimal places. Console.write line total price total C2. Currency with 2 decimal places. That's 3 decimal places. 2 decimal places. So there. And I think that, yeah, I think that's all I want. Let's see what this does. Let's go ahead and run it and let's take a look. Let's see if where we have some bugs. Let it run. This might take it a while. I don't think I ran it on this. Not too bad. Let's view the cart. Cart is empty. Alright, cart is empty. Let's check out. You have no items, we're good. Alright, let's add some bread. Now let's view the cart. Now we have a cart with 1 item and a grocery item, so there's no tax, and the total is $2.99. Check out. Total price, that. What we could do now is we could clear the cart on checkout. Say that you clear the cart and then if you want to buy some more or something. Maybe. Yeah, I think so. So say this is like the cashier running the program. So they're adding stuff to the cart and running the checkout. And when it checks out, you clear the options. We'll make that adjustment next. So let's see. So we got bread. Let's just add a bunch of stuff here. We add another thing. We get cart is full. So let's see what we have. So there we have our different values. You can see, even though we only had back over here in items, all the more concrete types here, the bread, books, whatever, don't really have a lot of code, but they're using the code from item, from the item base class here. Like the toString, everything here's formatted at least relatively nicely, that how I wanted them to be formatted, and they're all getting that from the base type. They all don't have to redo that. Check out real quick. There, total tax $666. Total price $84. I'd have to go through and actually add that up to see if it's right. I'm going to assume it is. That seems about right. 1250, so 25, 40, 48. $154. Yeah, let's set that up. Wait a minute. I'm doing it well in my head, but that doesn't feel right. Maybe it is, actually. I did not count the second 15 here, I don't. Okay, it is. I got a different number, but I may have made a typo here while I was calculating this real quickly. Maybe a little bit of rounding also. Oh yeah, because it looks like I got it right. Interesting. Yeah, it looks correct. So maybe we do have a little bit of rounding that I don't want. Oh well. We'll ignore that for now. Maybe we'll go back and check that here in a second. But see what I said first. Let's when you do checkout, let's clear the cart and move on to the next. Make that adjustment. So here after you're done, then come back over here and then we can do for int I equals 0, I less cart count, I plus plus. Now cart at I equals null. I don't even think we need to do that. Let's see if it doesn't work if we just do this. Cart count equals 0. See what happens in this case. And let's exit. This might do it. Even though the cart's technically still would be showing it's got stuff in it, setting the count here to 0 at the end may just do what we want. Total price. Cart is empty. Okay. Yeah, so that works. So that's a nice, easy fix to do that. And then you could just add another person. So if the next person only buys a book, then you can just go ahead and check out. And there you go. Let's see where that additional number came in. Let's do do so here we're just going to add a debugging statement here and let's see what happens. It may very well have been a typo on my end. Let's take a look. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Here's their calculation. So let's see. For $2.99. What's the calculator again? 0 plus $2.99 plus 1575 plus, yeah, there we go. There's the, so the tax rate there gets us off. Then we do the rounding thing here. Okay, that's all right. So that's what's happening though, is when you're doing that, see the numbers here getting bigger and more. But that's what's happening. So we can say we'll ignore that for now. If you were doing a real application, you'd probably want to try to deal with that, but we're not going to for this example. We're going to say this example is actually complete with this. There we got us a little, made a little app really relatively quickly with a lot of code, but a lot of it's like here. Like each one of these is technically has all these fields in it, but we didn't have to do any of that. We leveraged the power of inheritance. So there's a nice little example as well. So we're a little early, but I'm going to call it with this, and let's do it and do a summary. Let me that. Then let's do a summary. So once again, today we've been looking at object-oriented programming and a little bit of inheritance and subtypes, things like that. So here we have an item class. It has a few properties, so some data. As a constructor of something new we haven't seen. You can specify default parameter values. I would do this sparingly, but you can do it, and occasionally there's good uses of it. One thing to note: anything that comes, you have to have any value that's with this. Like I can't do name here. Like let's say name equals all. Here I get an error. Optional parameters must appear after all required. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you have an optional parameter like this, it has to be after anything required. After that, we have a method here, and it's not virtual, so that means each one can't override this. So everything has to use the same tax implementation. Same thing here. Decimal. Everything uses the same total price. And override. So here we're overriding the base object. So C#, almost everything's an object, so everything has a toString. Here we're just saying override the toString and do this instead, and we're putting a name, a price as a currency, category, tax as currency, and total as currency, and doing that just to have a nice little print for the user. Then we create some subclasses. So bread, which is an item, these properties or these values for its data, book with these, windshield wipers with these, and then t-shirt with these. That gives us a little or a few items, and we could expand it to more for say your little shop had more inventory or something. We could add more if we needed to, and we could go a different route. Lots of things we could do here, but to show inheritance, this is a good example. Good enough. Go to category. Category is a enum. We haven't talked about them, but basically this is a number that has a name. So you could do something like equals 0, equals 1, 2, equals 3. Notice there's no error here, and that's because that's what's really happening under the hood, is that's what these get treated as. So they're a number, and we give them a value, and that lets C# do some nice optimizations with it that we couldn't do if this was, say, a category string. And we might see later that you can actually get the name from these as well. And they can be really nice, and they can be really annoying all at the same time. It just depends on how they're used. But then we took these are items in our category. We made us a little shopping cart simulation. So we said we have 10 items. We have a count that keeps track of where we are, how many items are actually in the cart. We print our menu, just what the choices mean. Then we go through and get the choices, and we pass them to these helper methods. Here's the print menu. The first helper method's add the cart or add item. So we add an item to the cart if the cart's not full. Here we're using something new called a switch expression. So this one up here is a switch statement, and statement basically all the switch case statements. Each one of these is a statement that has an end. Each one of these is ending. Here the switch expression. Here you notice there's no semicolons until the very end. So it's all one thing. And what we're using it for is to set the item. So each one of the branches here, usually called arms, says, okay, if it's bread, item is bread. If it's a book, item's book. Or toothpaste is toothpaste. And doing that a really convenient way, because this would be much longer as a switch case statement rather than the expression. And I like those, but they can be a little confusing when you first see them, because just looking at it, it seems hard to understand. It comes easier with practice, and if you ever do a functional language, you'll see that this construct a lot more frequently. Here, one thing in the last lesson we talked about abstract items, or abstract classes. This one is not abstract, so that means we can create an item and we don't have to give it a direct category. Here we are giving it one, we're giving it category general by the optional value. We didn't specify it, so it gets the optional. Then we just add to the cart, we increment the count at the same time, and we just tell the user what we did. View cart, nothing important in view cart. If it's empty, we say it's empty, otherwise we just print each item. We're using the overload here, so this calls the toString method of that object. So whatever item in the cart, it says this item dot toString, and that's implicit here. Checkout is pretty straightforward as well. We loop through the cart and for each item, tell them what the item is. We get the text, and we print out debugging statement. That's a debugging statement I was checking with. Then we get the tax, and then we get the total price. Then we just print out the totals, and then we reset the cart for the next person. So the idea here was maybe a store clerk's going through and running this program and just pressing the numbers for whatever item it is. Some kind of simple system like that. So something that's probably not good in the real world, but not that complicated. So yeah, that's about what we've covered. So I hope for this introduction to object oriented has been interesting. The next lesson, I think I'm going to move on to another topic. But that topic's going to be we're going to implement a I'm going to say listing. C# what we're actually implementing is a list. It's basically an array you can expand the size of. So right now, arrays, if you do an array, you can it's fixed size. Once you create it, you can't change it. There's another type that's much more common that you can use instead of that. We're going to look into that, and we're going to do that by implementing it and then talking about how the actual type in C#. Some people don't like that approach, but I've found that approach to be useful for learning. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to be looking a little more toward the algorithms and data structures side of things. We're going to keep talking about object-oriented, though, so it'll be like a mix and slowly transitioning more toward the data structures, as that's the next focus of what I'm going to look into. One other topic I might consider first, so that's the probable for next week. The one item I might also consider is doing I might talk about unit testing. And that idea of unit testing is it's a way to automate how you test your code. So here, when I was testing it, I just had to go through and run the code. Running graph bar here. I was just going through and running the code and trying different things. In code, you can automate that fairly easily, and it's a good thing to learn. I don't know if I want to do it yet or not. I'll think about that though, and one of these two will be the next lesson. I'm going to call it there. So this has been episode 14 of Programming with Shadow. In this case, we've done a little shopping cart example to show object-oriented programming. So thanks for watching, and have a wonderful day.